Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Founders in Flight. Today I have Dave Korinek. He is a friend just 5 minutes from our studio down the street, but he started an agency that I really respect and admire called Magnetic Creative 20 years ago. He is just an amazing thought leader, just an amazing strategist, and just an incredible entrepreneurial story for those creatives out there who are really considering taking the leap. We talked about everything from really just strategy, that where agency model is really going long term, and some advice for people who may be early on in their journey. I hope you enjoy the conversation. Dave, so excited to have you in the studio today. And just, it's been a minute since we've had a chance to catch up, and you're always somebody that I enjoy chatting with, and you have an amazing story. So excited to dive into it, and thanks for taking the time.
Dude, happy to be here. I love that you're doing this. And, again, we've always had a good connection from the day we met. So I love that you're kind of getting together with founders and just talking founder stories.
100%. And you are the perfect fit. Whenever you had reached out and you and I connected, and it was like, this might be a really good opportunity for us to chat it up. I was like, I'm so excited that we're actually going to get this on camera, because, I think we've had this discussion a couple times, but we'll probably learn even new things about each other today.
Exactly.
Can you tell us a little bit about your origin story? Kind of give us the background of who is Dave? What is Dave passionate about? What have you built, and what are you in the process of now?
Sure. Well, I think, at the heart of everything, I'm a maker and a creator. That's where my sort of ethos comes from. I went to design school, so that's where I began. And then I worked for agencies, and I worked in corporate, and I did all that stuff. And at some point, I got this sort of lightning bolt from God that said, hey, I think you should start your own business. And I was like, what? Like, I have just had my fourth kid. We just bought a new house. Like, I don't think this is the right time. And of course, God's timing is never like our timing.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, well, I went back and talked to my wife, and she says, she goes, well, if God told you to do something, you probably should do it. And I was like, that's not what I was expecting you to say, but okay. So Mag was born. I left that company and started my own gig. And before I knew it, I was pretty bustling with work from clients. And it was exciting. It was wild to get into. I'd focus really more on the creative side first. So we were delivering just, really great design and creative for businesses. And then shortly after doing that for, a few years, I started adding people, and I wanted to keep it, I'll put it this way. I worked for so many agencies in the past. I was like, I don't want to build the same agency I worked for, because reality is a lot of people hated it, and I was like, how do I keep people to want to be in the business? And so I said, Mag's going to be like something that, hey, we care about our people. We're going to keep them accountable, but they're also going to be in charge of themselves. Like, they've got to do their job. But so there's accountability, but a lot of flexibility.
Yeah.
I want people to feel like, I always thought people were the greatest asset in any agency. And so I said, let's make the people the most important thing. We'll always do great work, and we'll give them autonomy to make that happen. And if you don't do your job, well, that's on you, right? Yeah. And we want to guide and direct people. So that was kind of I started with contracting everybody, right? So we were meeting at coffee shops, it was like, we were in Temecula at the time, California, and we were meeting at coffee shops, have our production meetings, and everybody go off and do their thing and come back. And then at some point we got to be, a couple of years in, we were like 10, 12 people, and it was getting a little harder and, better when you're together to work on stuff. So we got an office down there for the first time. I was like, oh, I was really didn't want to do this. I didn't want overhead. I didn't want employees, HR, all these things. Because all the companies I'd worked for just seemed like headaches. And it is headaches. It's definitely, I've learned that too. But it is a point where you reach a certain mass of people that you kind of need to do it. And so we found that. And so it was founded in 2006. So we're coming up, this is our 20-year anniversary. I cannot believe that.
So awesome.
Amazing. Really hard to be an agency for 20 years.
100%
I look back on the days of the beginning and what we are now, and it's like, whoa, we've changed so much. Like you just keep moving and shaking. Industries change, technology changes, like everything's moving. So we've kind of just continued to find our groove in what we do best, and then kind of sort of adapt to what's being added, whether it's technology or themes or AI or whatever it may be into the world. But yeah, so we started out, it was mostly creative. And then I want to say it was about 5 years in, we'd done a lot of great projects, and they were like, we would do great work, and then it didn't maybe perform like that we thought it would. And then I would just go back to the briefs and go like, well, what was the brief? Like, why did this not work so well? And I realized that the briefs were bad and that the strategy was bad and they didn't really know. And I was like, oh my gosh, they're missing this entire, like, it's like garbage in, garbage out. I'm like, I hate, like, as a creative, it's like, I want to know all the information so I can do really great work, and it works. So we started doing a lot of strategy. So we started building in this intelligence layer into the business. So I said, look, cool, we're going to figure all this out. We're going to tell them, we're going to be the experts at this. And we wanted to be kind of like that, McKinsey or that Accenture of like the agency world in our world to tell them what they needed to do and help them, guide them along, and then build out all the creative assets. And then we were doing that for a while, and I realized, oh my gosh, social media opened up. So did the world of like basically content creation. And we said, let's build in a studio. So we started out in video, and we started out in photography and doing all the stuff. And that was sort of phase 3. And then the last one was really growth marketing. So we realized after all the stuff is going, if they don't run the right media, run the right ads, or put the things in the right place, do the right relationships or brand co-ops, it's not going to go anywhere, right? So we wanted to help control the process, and that's how we built our entire ecosystem of brand intelligence meets creative and meets growth marketing, kind of all in one. So that's where we are 20 years later, but it just was learning along the way and seeing the gaps in wanting to do great work for people. And I'm a problem solver. I've always been that. So I want people, when they work with us or we solve, I want it to work. You pay me. My job's to fix something and make it work. So when things weren't working, it was frustrating. And I think out of those frustrations just became, the things that we were missing, we fixed and we added. And it's been really cool to watch that change over the years.
That's so cool. Well, even since I think you and I first connected, maybe I want to say about 2 years ago, this probably feels about right.
Yeah.
And I personally, I think, learned a lot about strategy for small to mid-sized businesses from you. You did some kind of independent consulting work for Mallard, which was like honestly really kind of, you operate in a silo and you're kind of blinded by your own repetition. And I thought that exercise was not just clarifying for me and my business, but also was clarifying for how we go about that with our clients too. So I really see you as a true leader in the area of strategy and taking complex ideas and making them simple, finding your true north. Is that what you guys call it?
Well, that's the why when we for companies. You got to find your true north, and then your longitude and latitude, your how and your what, So
yeah, totally. Well, your frameworks are really, really helpful, practically speaking. What's your role in the business today, and how has that shifted over time?
Yeah. Definitely has shifted. I mean, as a founder sitting here in the founder chair, right? Such a weird thing. I mean, I started the business because I love what I do.
Yeah.
I didn't start out being like, oh, I'm going to be a CEO and run a company. And so, we got to this point where we were getting so big. I mean, we were at 60, 65 people. And, I was not doing what I liked anymore. I really wasn't. I was doing new business. I mean, I know you love new business. I was just like, I love talking to people about what we do.
Yeah.
And if that turns into business, great. I like to solve problems, but I was getting disconnected from the stuff that I loved. So we met as a sort of leadership team. We have a couple other partners I brought in along the way. And we just said, hey, look, how do we solve this? We need good operations. We need to be profitable. We need to do all this stuff. That's not what I love to do. And so we ended up moving one of our guys, one of my business partners in South Africa, into the CEO role. And I kind of slid into this role. It was kind of autonomous, which was kind of interesting, as the founder, doing what I really love to do, but helping, kind of going out and starting to help brands individually. So I think there's this gap also. The reason we did this was saw this gap between big companies and the small to medium sized companies, right? And a lot of times, like, it's hard for them to hire an agency, or they're in between. Like they're not ready to go big agency. What I mean by big agency is spending upwards of $75,000 more a month, right? Like it can get costly. And that's, when you get into a company like Mag and as big as we've become, you have to have a certain budget, like a threshold to get into a company like that. But there's people that need help to get there. And so I found this spot where I was like, hey, look, I can help people, get through that strategic phase and into positioning themselves and even get the creative visualization going. And then they're ready to go into an agency and spend that ongoing, because that is the starting point ultimately, right? Again, the strategy and the creative and all, it's great, but then what do you do with it? And I think that's really what I saw myself as like, I could go do this and help people individually. And I started working with a bunch of different companies. And so it was a little bit of a new journey for me. But at the same time, as a founder, I'm looking at the value of the business. And I had realized I'd got to a spot where I'd built that around me at the company that I didn't need to do it all for the company.
Right.
So it's great. I've taught and mentored a bunch of people, from creative all the way through strategy and to how we handle customers. And it's like I have to let that kind of go a bit, which is a weird position to be in. And because eventually it'd be a nice point to exit as a founder, and say, hey, I did that and it was great. But it was cool. It was really fulfilling to kind of go back into a growth sort of position again, where I'm like, hey, I want to go back to what I love to do. And I didn't know that at the time. When we had first talked, I think I was right in the beginning phases of that. I was like, let me help you with this because I just want to do more what I used to do a lot more. And I started doing it and making and creating. And before I knew it, I was just like, I was having fun again, And I think that's what sometimes you get into these roles of as a founder, where you start to bring people in. It's like, where do I fit in, or what am I really good at? And I would encourage people is always be what you're good. Always do what you're good at. Because when you start to try to fill roles that you're like, that's not why I was put on this earth. I was get here to do this. If you want to do it, that's great. But if you're not loving it, you got to stay true to yourself. Because in any part of whether you're a designer or a creator or whatever, you could be running a construction company. It doesn't matter. If you don't love doing what you're doing, it's just going to show. And so I really felt like that was what I was on a journey of self-discovery again was my role now. And I don't know, you get into the spot too, where you're like a little bit of oh my gosh, it's been 2 years since I've been really in the weeds with this. Do I still got it? Can I still do it? And it was fun. I just really tapped back. It was like riding a bike, getting back into that role instead of just being on the outside consulting with the team and not doing the work. I was actually getting into the work and consulting the clients directly, which is what I really like to do.
100%. And you're so good at it. So you're kind of stepping into a new chapter a little bit, or you have over the last couple of years. Can you kind of almost backtrack and if you had to bucket different chapters of your journey, that you think may be valuable for a founder to hear, what was the first chapter, and then what happened for you to switch to chapter 2 and what happened for you to switch to chapter 3, and maybe you're on chapter 4 or chapter 7 right now. I'm not sure, but what are those big, beats of your journey that you look back and kind of observe?
Good question. Yeah, I mean, I kind of covered a little bit earlier how we sort of evolved the business. Those were definitely chapters where we started out hey, let's just create. That's what I do. We're a design team, create, again, I would say we're a boutique creative studio doing great work, but just so happened that we were launching Vizio TVs into the market with our first big client. So it wasn't the smallest shop. We were doing great work, and that company went ballistic and we were working our tails off. I think we had just learned chapter 1 was that just creating, right? And doing work for clients. And then it shifted. Chapter 2 was creating and not getting the results, but wanting to get results. So it was really more the refinement of the creative process into how do we show the intelligence behind it? Because I think it's really important that creators create with intent, and again, you're purpose driven all the time. Well, that's what it means is hey, how do we do this with purpose so that it actually yields a result? Yeah. And that was something I was great. We were getting paid to do a service, but I'm I want to be more than just a service company. I want to go deeper. And so that was phase 2. Phase 3 was as some of these things opened up, any business, you're oh, new tech or new things, the industry is changing. When video and it became such a streaming or capabilities became anybody could shoot with cameras versus hiring big studios to do commercials and brand work or brand videos. That was a big one where I was wow, that was a big, we're opening a production studio inside. So that was phase 3. You're literally creating other areas in your business to create revenue. So that was, again, looking for ways to grow the business, to also just continue to adapt to what was happening around us. I think that was phase 3. And then phase 4 was, again, kind of bringing in, I think, the growth marketing side. So that's the early journeys of the formation of what we've been doing now for a long time. So at the end of that, I would say that's okay, we established the business is there. We've got something that I think the ecosystem and as a business has been running and doing what it's supposed to do. It's getting results for clients. Then let's step into, I'll call it stage, it's the next level is, okay, where does this go? Now you're growing the business, the struggles of putting the right team members in place. You have these, how do we make how do we separate these layers so that everything functions properly? How do we build the structures so that design team and studio works well with accounts and with growth marketing? Like, how's that all work together? And then for us, I would say in that phase, we also started. That's when I built the relationship with our South African company, right? So I wanted to grow the business. And so I said, oh man, like I met a buddy of mine, Paul, and he was talking to me about, I was like, where do you want to go with the company? And I was like, well, I mean, look, we're doing great. We're like, revenue is just kind of like steady, but up and down every year. But I really want to grow. Like, I want to get past this mark of, I think we were kept bumping into that 2 million a year or something, between 1.5 and 2 million. It was great. It's a good lifestyle business. And I just said, I want to grow something that can last longer and has more, has more structure to it that could grow and maybe someday be purchased or bought out. So I brought my South African team in. We basically came together and we made a deal. It was like, hey, look, we'll give you shares in the whole company and you give us all of your company. So we had like 35 people down there at the time, all of his clients and revenue. And our goal was, so now we're going to integrate that team into the US team. Man, if I thought that was going to be easier then than I did 10 years later, right? It took a while to get us fully integrated. We were operating on two different, margin. Like he had his margins in the South Africa, we were in US, and we were both running different, P&Ls. And at some point, literally like 3 years ago, while we were doing all this, we merged that together. So, hey, we're one company. Let's stop running two different things and let's work together. Ideally, the goal was we help to drive US business through, manage the quality layer, and have our team there that are, South Africans, Elon Musk, all the, they're extremely intelligent, well-spoken, and we've created great friendships with all, but it's not like outsourcing, right? It's really different. So when we bought them, or sort of bought into them and brought them into the team, and ATM became a partner with me, it was like, oh cool, we established a multi-location, a global company, and but we were having to work with time zones and figure, it's crazy. But it was a good idea. We thought if we could work with better margins, getting US work and also using our SA team to offset those costs a bit, that was a good margin game for us. And so it was a little tricky. And I think we learned a lot over the years. And I think we're really just sort of hitting the stride with it because there's a lot of things that are missing there too, that context, relevance, US market, it's hard to get that understanding that you have in the US. So I think we've found what works best for us there, but here we are. That's sort of the next season, I will call it, where we're in now, where we're really, I think, hitting the ground running with that and finding what makes sense for all of us. But yeah, I guess that's the story, but it's a constant evolving story, right? And each chapter sort of writes itself as you go. And one thing I've learned as a founder is you have to learn how to adapt, stay true to who you are and what the business is, but how do you adapt your business and your role even in the company as it changes around you? And you see that today. You work with a lot of companies where technology is like just totally disrupting them. And I've been hearing the word digital transformation for how many years, but it's true, right? There are companies totally evolving, not to spreadsheets, but like to autonomous AI agentic workflows in their businesses and their construction companies. And it's like, whoa, like, how does that work? These don't seem like, well, it does. And that's where, again, whatever founder you are and whatever industry you're in, I think you really have to look at what's around you and evaluate everything at all times. And how does that apply to my business, right? So, so I think the stories are written. Some of them our chapters are written, some of them by our own means and others by it's a typical story, right? Challenge. There's a story, like something happened, this warrior's wife and son were killed and now he must go face a battle. Those things happen, right? So these little things in your life happen and you got to go deal with it. And there becomes a new chapter. So.
Yeah, totally. So you talked about one of the things that was interesting to me is that kind of you've achieved the point of viability in the business. You've achieved some stability, a great lifestyle business, as you put it. I think, we spend a lot of time, especially like even just on this podcast with the people I've been talking to, we talk about the very early stages and then we talk once you're past 10, $20 million in revenue. But there's this other stage that I think a lot of people where it's like, you may not be in this hyper growth mode already and you may be past the point of achieving some sort of viability, but you're in this, I'm going to call it like this moment of being a little bit stuck. What would you say to somebody who's in that season, and what type of advice would you give them beyond partnership or beyond like practical advice that you would have for somebody to take the next step if they want to grow, of course?
Yeah, for sure. And I would say we had to do that too, because yes, we were in a lifestyle sort of business, but as we started to add people and do this part, it changed, right? We started looking at EBITDA. We started looking at all these things. How do we be profitable? It's all the great stuff you want to have in your business, but I would honestly say that wasn't what my focus was in the beginning. It was do great work, do more stuff, solve more problems. So people that are in that space, I think, you have to be aware of your surroundings. And I'll say it that way is like, just because you started one way, I mean, think about it. We've been in business for 20 years. Just because I started one way doesn't mean I'm going to end that way. Right. And so this is that point where you have to decide, am I analyzing it? Strategy is something that's ongoing. And I think that's inside the business for your clients. So, but if you take a look and evaluate everything every year and just say, okay, look, what were our KPIs this year? Did we hit them? What were we trying to accomplish here? What were we trying to accomplish? Is there any outliers or things that are affecting our industry? What can we do to change that? Is there anything we can do to change that? Or do we need to adapt and evolve? So I would say, to a founder that is in the throes of it is don't think that just the way you started is the way you're going to finish. That be open to change. I mean, change is like change management's part of life, and especially as a founder and in running a business. And I think you just going to have to adapt and look at things for what they are. And it doesn't have to be like, you don't have to overthink it either, but you need to look at what the problems are. Like, what's our problem? Think of all the clients you work for and we work for, right? Challenge, solution, results. Yeah. Look at those challenges. Are they positives or negatives? Are they business breakers or business makers? Just because it is hurting your business now, it could be the thing that elevates you to the next level if you can evolve with the business to do that. So I look at those things as exciting little things that pop up on the road that you have to deal with. But I would just encourage to always don't just set it into sort of self-drive mode and expect it to continue to do what it needs to do.
Right.
You always want to be evaluating.
Yeah. For somebody who, let's say that they're not averse to change, they're maybe even pursue it
more.
Too much. They're a little
that
bit
can
distracted.
Be just as dangerous.
But for somebody who doesn't really struggle with that and they're sitting in the founder seat, but instead their challenge is how do I get my team to embrace change as a good thing?
Sure.
You were managing a team back whenever you kind of were in that phase, and you continue to be heavily involved in that. But what would you say to somebody who is struggling with getting a team to not think that you're being distracted and or squirrel, but instead like really having them see the value in pursuing betterment like that?
Well, it's probably the same way I would, position like my wife that I need a new larger TV is, do some research. I'm going to like position it. No, but I think it really is about, you want to get people to feel, and with clients too, you want them to feel like they were part of the decision. And so a lot of times what I do and what we've done in the past is like, we ask a lot of questions to the team, like, hey, AI is a good example, right? We've been dealing with the AI insertion, just how do you insert this into your business? There's so many tools you could we could use a tool for this, or we could use a tool for that. It's like, okay, let's calm down. What are the tools that can make the most impact? How can they create efficiencies in the business for copy or for creative or for whatever that may be, operations, and like sort of one step at a time. So you want to like slow it down a little bit. But usually what I do is we've tried to get the people involved. We have, not only do we have our executive team, we have a leadership team. That leadership team is responsible for running a lot of the different teams below, but we ask them to be a part of the decisions we make, right? So it's like, hey, we're talking about this. What's your input? What's your input? Because you want it to feel like we all made this decision together. And in the end, the exec team and the leadership team is going to say, hey, look, we've heard everything and here's our suggestions and here's how we do it. But I think at that point, then they feel like they've been heard, because that's the thing I challenge. I think with people not wanting to do something, it's usually because maybe they don't like change, but maybe they don't feel like you're hearing them. Why do they not want to change is the core question, right? So you don't want to change that. Why don't you want to change that? Well, then my job's going to be harder. Their mindset is like, how's this going to affect my world? Right. And yet if you show them like, well, actually this change might take a little bit of work in the beginning, but it's going to make your job easier in the end. Oh, Like it's conversations, and I think like that are really critical in whatever business you're in. Again, I've worked with a lot of companies where I've gone in to do their brand strategy, and I've found a ton of infrastructure problems.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my gosh, you guys, like
You
you're not
thought
even.
this was marketing.
Yeah, you know this is about.
Actually,
We're looking at your brand. I mean, like
Yeah.
this is like the ethos of a consulting thing. Is you go in and you see like, wow, did you know that your engineering team doesn't speak to these people?
Yeah.
And did you know that operations is not talking to tech? Like you guys are all over the place. There's fractures. Until you fix these fractures, you're still going to have these problems all over your company. And so I think it's communication, man. It's at the core of it. Just talking through things, not forcing it upon people. I think it gets harder and harder as you get bigger and bigger. I mean, you're talking companies that are, $300 million in revenue. That's a lot harder to do that. But I think you can still have people that represent those people speaking on their behalf and saying what's important. I think it's really good to do that, though.
Totally. I feel like change is one of those things where, like I was thinking about my journey, and whenever I originally started, I wanted to have my team be really heavily involved in every decision because I'm an empathetic person and I value people and all these things. Yet I'm also highly dynamic and very scattered and all the things. And so what I did is I would include them, and then I found myself, I didn't realize that at the time, but almost trying to take their feedback and implement all of it, as opposed to using my intuition and playing my role, which I really feel is curation of good feedback, and then selling back to them the benefit of how I've curated that feedback into actually rolling it out in the business.
Yeah.
I think that takes it takes somebody a little bit of practice to get there. I think that you have to be able to listen, and then I think the key thing here is to be able to discern, and then and to really kind of not feel like you're letting somebody down by not implementing everything that they said.
Yeah, I agree. It's a good. I mean, it's great to be self-aware like that too. That you learn those things. I think it's really important for every founder to learn how to be self-aware in that way, or people that are running a company. The other thing also that really helps is just camaraderie and like culture.
Yeah,
right?
totally.
If you have a good culture, and I know you guys do at Mallard here, and same thing with Magnetic. It's been the thing we hang our hat on is like people stay at our company. They've been there for 10 plus years, and some of the guys 20 years, like when I started the company.
Cool.
And it comes down to like we trust each other, and like we're gonna make decisions that are best for each other. I mean, great example that's like COVID. I mean, there's a lot of people that just lopped off of their company, their employees, and got rid of everybody because COVID. We couldn't really do as much as but PPP dollars came out. We're like, well, this isn't the best great way to put our business in debt, but let's get some of this money to help keep the company around. And I look back and people really appreciated that. I didn't get fired during COVID, which is such a heartless thing to do, but yeah, it was a really tricky time for the business, but we had to make a decision what was best for the company and what was best for our people. And I think that's just, you earn that over time, right? And those kinds of things are huge, but just being able to have honest conversations. We talk a lot about what's going on with the business with the company, right? We do all hands meetings, and we share like, here's where our financials are. Like, here's how we did this year. We started doing a sharing program. So like if, at the end of the year, if we're profitable, we take a percentage of that, put it on the side, and then it's based off of a calculation of their years with the business and, what their role is. And they get a bonus every year. Like everybody loves that. So now we're all in it together. Yeah. And so it's not about, I just want to do this because I think it's cool. It's like, is that also going to help us make money? Like it's a business, and that's a big one. I think from a creative side of things, right? You look at, a design side, like, let's just do cool stuff. But in the end, it's like, it's commercial design. We're designing for clients. So it's got to work, and it's got to do what it's got to do. It's still got to be cool. That's the baseline, but how do we do it within their business so that it makes the right thing for them? So, but I think bringing people into the picture, making them part of it, like you said, I think and having the discernment as the leadership team or the founder to make the right decision. And maybe you don't do everything all at once, like let's start here, phase it out.
Yeah, that's wise.
And that way you don't have to do it. Because again, change is good, but it can also kill you if you do too much of it at the same time. So
totally
foundationally take the right steps, build upon it. And it's also the way you can get employees on board and teams on board is show them one thing and let them build on that, show that it's working, and then keep moving. So adoption becomes much easier at that point.
It's good. Let's talk about creative entrepreneurs, because you and I both fall into that
Yeah.
category. I talk to a lot of artists who want to become business owners, or I talk to technicians who want to become business owners, or
Sure.
maybe even business people who want to become creative.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
But, I noticed that there is a lot of things for those people, me included, probably you included early on in your journey, that are potential pitfalls. Running a creative business is not easy. I mean, the product that we sell is highly subjective in a lot of cases. I mean, strategy creates a lot of hard conversations because
Sure.
it's really, change management, and you're almost causing change without maybe
Yeah.
somebody even asking for it in certain cases.
I'm gonna change my logo and change all my boards now, all my building. Yeah.
Totally. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
There's implications for that. And so what are some things that you would say to somebody who is a creative entrepreneur? Maybe they are somebody who's freelance for a hot minute and they're like, wow, I'm doing a lot and I could really use some help. Maybe I'm a DP and all of a sudden my like calendar's filling up with tons of edits on top of that. And maybe I should build a production company or, a designer who's like, branding a bunch of companies this year. And they're like, I wonder if I could scale this.
Yeah.
What are some pieces of advice you would give them?
Especially for a creative entrepreneur. I think you and I both know how hard it is to, run a business where you're making sure there's enough work for everybody, right? And there's a lot of risk involved when you hire employees and you start paying benefits and you have all these things. And so, look, I feel your position, and I'm sure you feel mine when you look at this. Is it's hard. I mean, I'm not going to lie, right? Yeah. And I also take it very seriously, or I would take it very seriously, because it's people's lives, that you're dealing with here, and it's their livelihoods. So if you're a creative entrepreneur and you're doing well, I would say stay lean and mean. And totally. I mean, the reason if a business is going to grow, let it grow around you, right? I think one of the things we started doing as we kind of got going, like I said, I started with a certain amount of people, core group. We were all contractors, and then sort of like, oh my gosh, I've got 12 people and we're doing X amount of dollars in revenue. Like, it kind of makes sense for us to have a building and a location now, and like actually hire everybody as employees. And so I would just say take it slow. There's no rush, right? And it's also, how's it affecting you, right? There's only a certain amount of work you can do. And I know that's what I found was I was doing a lot of the work, and then I started bringing people in to be like, cool, if you can do the work that I don't need to do it, then great. Then I can grow the business. I can do more. And so I think if you find yourself as a creative entrepreneur, stay entrepreneurial. Like don't, and everybody wants to own their own business, but you're owning your own business by being an entrepreneur, and there's nobody better to run your own than you, right? Like, and make it something you enjoy. Especially as a creative, I think there's a huge, there's a mental state you want to be in. You don't want to be like you're in a job shop. It's not just about making money. It's about fulfilling this creative need that you have and fulfilling that for your clients and customers and people. So I guess mine would be take it slow. Don't rush it. When the revenue and the volume sort of makes sense to maybe have a small team or bring people in, because you also, if you deal with contractors, they might not be available. Right. So at some point you're like, I need to lock these people in. But but the other part is like, if you ever start hiring people, I did that in the beginning. I mean, I knew people that I was bringing in from other previous places I'd worked, and so and they were friends, and I was like, man, like two of my best friends are my ECD now and my chief of digital. So like they've been with the company, and again, right out of the gate, I was like, I want these guys. So you want to build people like the right kind. It's like you're building a team, right? And you want this, like, you want a dynasty team, or then you want the right people standing by you. Yeah. And so I looked at it a lot like that, a collaborative partnership, in the ways, even in the beginning, even though I was running the stuff, it was like, that was just because I happened to be in a spot where I started getting the work and I started this thing. But yeah, I think the biggest thing for a creative entrepreneur is don't rush it. Take your time. Again, focus on your craft and do because if you focus on your craft and you're getting busy, it means you're doing something right. Yeah. Right. And then I would encourage them to not keep charging what they're charging, but slightly raise their prices. So you're doing less work and making more money. And then at some point, if that gets to a point of scale, then you can start, bringing more people in. But I mean, hey, why ruin a good thing when you got good stuff happening. But if it's really your desire, you kind of have the two, right? You have people that want to start a company, and they start with, I mean, you kind of said, I want to start an agency, and like started it, right? Wild, man. That's so wild. That's impressive. I was more on the side of like, I mean, I do this stuff. Why don't I just start doing things and then I'll grow?
I think those are the two paths.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, you probably are in the majority, and I'm probably the psychopathic minority. But I definitely, I think like about my journey, and I think about the things that I would like, the couple of things I would recommend to somebody like that. As you're talking, I'm thinking, and the first one that comes to mind is identify the people you want to be like when you grow up, and then ask them if you can pay them $250 an hour to consult you twice a month.
Yeah,
that's like honestly been probably I mean, if you want to become somebody, you have to surround yourself with them. And for people who you want to become, they usually have a problem, not with money, but with time. And so people like that, usually they'll either do it for free if you ask them, or they'll see that you respect their time enough to pay them a substantial hourly rate. And so that'd be the first thing I would say is, who do you want to be like? That person can help you not just with the practical stuff, but they could also help you to discern, do I actually want to do this or not? If you're at the point to where you're making, let's call it $10,000 a month, and you want to grow to $50,000 a month, just practically speaking, that is going to be a really hard road, and you're probably going to need to be surrounded by some really smart people. And those people, not only should they be smart, they should also be able to emotionally sustain you and help guide you in those moments where you're about to quit, because that will happen. It happens to, I mean, almost everybody I talk to who's in this bucket. So that's the first thing I would say. And then the second thing I would say is that whenever the main pitfall I see is people who are currently charging a day rate and they're trying to switch to charging a project rate.
Got it.
And that to me, I feel like is a big switch, because people have historically seen you as, okay, well, I'm going to pay you either a very small rate for a project, or I'm going to pay you for a day's worth of work, or an hourly rate, or whatever it might be. And switching that. And I think the main thing that's been helpful for us has been, how am I packaging my product to be a solution to a really big problem that people feel? So it's not, I'm going to go and shoot a video and edit it for X amount. It is, I am going to solve the problem that your current candidate pool doesn't know what it's like to work for your company. And that is a huge problem. And then applying the exact same solution, but at a much elevated cost. I think that that's been transformational for me really early on in my journey, was productization and packaging of services. Have you seen that?
Yeah, I think I would add on to that, where I'm also a big fan of like value-based billing. Like, what is the value of it?
Totally.
Right? Because I have this challenge that we face, or also you face too, of being a commodity. And I think where that comes from, we actually had one of our developers about 15 years ago or 10 years ago, his wife was going through like her master's program, and she was like evaluating companies, and she's like, hey, can I evaluate your company as part of my program? And she did all this interviews, and she did all this really cool stuff, and came back, and she goes, I want to give you some really good feedback that I want to give you. I was like, great, what is it? She goes, you will always fight a commodity battle when you're just facing creative execution as your main thing. But if you keep honing in on the strategy side of things, he's like, people will always pay for big ideas. They'll always pay for that because they don't have them. That's what they need from you. But if you just, focus on execution, you're going to get driven down, just like, the TV market, I can buy TV for $200, right? It's become a commodity. But if you create something that, isn't that is like, this is what differentiates us, that really is what's the value of that. Right. So my thing has been that is really, how do we create value for companies? What is that value in the market to companies? And how do I sell that? So yes, it is packaged in like things, but I also want to get that point across that I try not to look at it as just dollars and cents. Totally. It's not about time. It's not even about project. Like even right now, like what I'm doing right now, I call myself a fractional chief brand assassin, right? So it's my job. Come in, I'm one part chief creative officer, I'm one part chief brand officer, chief strategy, chief marketing. I do all those things. So when I go in, it's like, you're basically renting my time, like a percentage of my time. So, I do X amount of dollars or X amount of percentage. I have 100% of my time. Well, let's call it 80%. I'm going to rent out 80% of my time this month. What is the value. And I do have packages based on percentage of time, but there's no hours in there. It's just like, this is a percentage of my mind share that I'm working on your stuff for you.
Yep.
But what you're getting is like a fractional 3-headed monster of sorts as an executive in your business that can handle a lot of these problems for you. So these headaches now become opportunities for you. And so, yeah, I think it's just how you position it. Gosh, it's such a big difference. I agree with you. Like, I hate the hourly game because like, so example would be, oh, well, how long did that take you? I mean, well, Chris Dew, right? Chris Dew does a great job talking about this, but it's this idea that it doesn't matter how long it took.
Yeah.
Did you get this logo or this thing at the end of the day that was going to change your business?
Would it be worth more to you if it took me 4 times as long?
Okay. Yeah. So it took me 80 hours. Yeah. Great. It only took me 4, but it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Still the same value.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that to me is a critical piece there. And I think, a Mercedes is a Mercedes. You can't get it for less than it is. It's what it costs. And so I look at it like that as, yes, like, let's create packages, but the packages need to be aligned with the value of what it is.
Totally.
Is basically.
I think that one thing that you really live out well that I've tried to emulate is, and maybe this is not how you think of yourself, but it's how.
No, tell me, I love this.
But like, I think of, if I package my services and put a price against that value creation of X amount of dollars, and somebody says there's just no way that I'm going to be able to afford that. That's totally fine. Can I give you some free ideas that might be able to help you? And still, like, I think that you do that really well. And I think that we've truly tried to emulate that of, at the end of the day, I really actually do care about adding value for you, regardless of if you're paying me dollars and cents and you're actually completing my QuickBooks invoice. Like, the truth of the matter is that, like, I don't know that life is long enough for me to be that gatekeeping of my talents.
Yeah.
And anyways, I think you do that really well, and not trying to tell everybody that you'll work for free, but because you definitely shouldn't, because the value you create is so vast, and so helpful. And I think that that's something that I really, I think most businesses need. That leads to my next question, which is, do you think that the future of small to mid-sized business relationship with agency is more, call it fractional brand assassin, or fractional CMO, or, fractional revenue, person, whatever it might be? Do you think that that's the nature of relationships moving forward, or do you think that traditional agency model will remain intact given what we're facing?
I would say traditional agency model, not so much, but some kind of hybridization of that.
Yeah.
I think no matter who you are in the agency world today, whether you are a fractional, again, what I think's happened is the big agencies are having to cut margins, get margins back in their business. So they're cutting really talented people. Those talented people are starting fractional businesses and running
the trickle down effect.
Basically going out and working for these companies. And with AI tool sets and whatnot, I mean, just in the last few years I've done this, I've realized, wow, like I actually can 10x myself based on what is available to me. I mean, I can, like, you're recording a podcast, like I do these, I'll record a podcast, I edit social cuts, or I have somebody, but they're all done. I don't need an entire team to do this stuff. So the capability is there. And especially if you're a maker or a creator and you're able to do those things. But I will say, I think that just the expectation from an agency is going to get higher.
Yeah.
It's not that, I think the marginal agencies will fall by the wayside, and it'll be the ones that stand out that really are truly solving business problems for companies. I think that's the biggest thing I see is, we built relationships with brands that we've been down with for 10 years or plus 10 years. And they stay with us, not, the work's great, but they stay with us because of the relationship. We've built a knowledge base with them. We are constantly thinking on their behalf. We're kind of an extension of them, but you're the thinkers for them, right? They're in the day-to-day grinding things out, and our job's trying to figure out how to do more of the good things and get rid of the bad things and sort that out. So that partnership level is so different. I think I've always not loved the concept of being a provider to someone, or like, oh, this is our vendor. Oh, I hate that word.
Yeah.
I hate the vendor
Me too.
word. I'm like, a vendor. What do I sell? Popcorn?
Yeah.
What am I doing here? Yeah. Brands, whatever, DNA here for you. Like I really like the idea of being a partnership, because you invest so much time into companies that I think you need to have that connection point. So I think it's about relationship. I think it's about trust that you build by action, right? You can't get trust without earning it. So I think you have to get into those companies, show the value. Same thing. Let's create value. This isn't about dollars and cents or checking off a box, or buy this thing and get that back in return. This is a deeply embedded kind of thing. We're focused on outcomes. So not every agency is, right? Some people are like, I just want to create the next cool campaign.
Yeah.
I think that kind of thing is going to start to slide away a little bit. It's going to lead into the creator, sort of, I don't know, sort of creator economy where all these people can just create great stuff. There's directors and creators out there that can do those projects, and they're not going to be able to compete price-wise with agencies. Aren't going to be able to compete with them. Or, you're going to have talented individuals that are out there that are able to do this work at a fraction of the cost. But for them, it's not, like I looked at last year doing what I was doing, my margins were great. Yeah, I don't know. My employee to cost ratio was pretty good. It was just me, really, for the most part. But in the end, I think, it's finding you really need to establish that value together with the business. And it also comes with, we talked about this a little bit of like doing reviews along the way, like with the client, like talking about, hey, like what else can we do better? Where else you need our help? Because sometimes they don't tell you. And I'm like, I need that friendship and relationship where if something's not working, you talk to us about it or talk to me about it. And I see that now when I'm integrated in, it's like, I'm solving all these problems for the business. I'm working like an operator in a company where I'm taking all the problems away. If you slide that between, you have this agency wall now, you've got this, like, you have an account person, and you've got a strategist, and you've got your design team in the studio, and then the CEOs sometimes talk to each other. There's sort of this weird wall, it's like what's the Game of Thrones wall? Yeah. The white wall is just there. But this connection point is so critical. And I think the more connection points you make with the business, and the ones that I think we see the best results in the longer term relationships are like, we just create this bond that they trust us so deeply. When they get an idea in the middle of the night, they're texting it to us, or they're just, hey, I need to think about this. Can you help me solve it? Not, what am I going to do to solve this? And I think if you're that go-to in those areas, it's something we always talk about at Magnetic, but I would say it to everybody out there in this world is make yourself like so valuable that the company can't live without you, whether it's working for a business or working with businesses. I think that's the thing, is you have to make something that like you're indisposable. And if you are, you got to be careful. That's where you got to check yourself and realize that somebody else could do this, And I think you get in the habit of, we've got there too, where clients, maybe they lower their budget or something. You're like, oh, well, we just need to execute this year. And then you start executing. And at the end of the year, they're like, well, you guys didn't do much strategy this year. I'm like, well, you guys gave us an execution budget to execute, but you're not. So get back to all right. So don't ever take the thinking out of it, because again, that was exact reason, like, oh, commodity to invaluable. So that's the big difference. I think that agencies will see the change in is no longer can you get away with just being, we'll run your ad, budget. And, I think that's big companies are starting to see it too. You don't think companies themselves are using AI tool sets? You don't think they're trying to write their own copy? And so I think the brains behind it, if you, as the agency or as the company working with the brands, if you can find that way to say like, hey, like you need us, we can articulate and orchestrate better than anybody on your behalf. And we can do it better. And we're going to be more efficient on our end. We'll tighten up our margins to do the work. But I think you have to create that relationship where it's indisposable.
Totally. So good. I feel like one of the things that I would encourage people to do is to vet your clients just as much as they're vetting you.
Oh boy.
Really thinking about, like, are they really looking, ask yourself the question, are they looking for a partner? Or are they looking for hands and feet to do the work? And I think that if they're looking for hands and feet, then you're, not guarantee, but I can be pretty certain that that's probably not a long-term relationship that you're about to establish. And you should probably just guard your expectations, because sometimes I think it can morph into that. But I think that if it's not starting there, then they probably haven't developed their thoughts enough about what the solution is that they really need at the end of the day. 100%. The thing that I'm seeing is just the true value is in strategists and tastemakers being the mixture of what is really needed. So like just strategy without creative taste, I think doesn't allow for us to take creative problem solving and put it on top of great strategy and use that as a problem solving mechanism. The execution of that creative, I think, is up for interpretation of how that happens long term. But I think that being if you want to protect yourself, and you're a creative entrepreneur, I would surround yourself with great strategists and learn from them and practice it often. Do it for free, get your reps, whatever you need to do. And then the second thing is either become or surround yourself with people who are really great at curating great creative ideas and have amazing taste that is going to be able to align with the strategy that you or someone else works on. Those two roles feel irreplaceable to me in a lot of ways and feel really there's a high demand for them right now.
I 100% agree. And I think you said it earlier, and it's kind of funny. We came from two sides of this when we started our agencies. And I think one of the things you start to learn as a founder is to recognize your weaknesses. Okay. And it's like, okay, like, you're not a creative. You're a money guy. You are creative. I'm sorry. I'm not saying you're not creative.
No. It's okay.
But you're more of a money guy.
You can call me a money guy.
You like spreadsheets. I do not. And so like, here we are, two different sides of the table. So I recognize that early, but I think if I'd recognized it even earlier, we would have been more successful on the profitability and the money side because I didn't do that stuff. I was like, I don't know how to, I'm just getting more work in the door, paying the people that was how we did it. That was the lifestyle business of it. But if I'd have earlier said, I need a Sean in my life, right? What if I could connect with him and you do that, you're running the new business, I'm doing the work, like that is the key component is so know your weaknesses and be aware of them and fill those gaps. Sometimes that's partnerships. Sometimes that's just bringing in key employees, but you're spot on with that idea of like, again, whether you're looking for those things with strategists, tastemakers, people that can actually operate the business, like all of those things are critical. Because if one of them fails, you're in trouble, but yeah.
So good. Okay, so I always wrap every conversation with this question, or at least I try to anyway. Sometimes I ask it mid-cycle because I can't wait. But tell me if there was a third member of our conversation today, and that person was this basically in the same seat that you were in back 20 years ago as you were starting Magnetic. Just somebody who's early on, somebody who's just starting their business and really is trying to make it grow, create viability, like just trying to get it off the ground. What's one piece of encouragement, one piece of advice that you would give them?
So I think it's really important to truly understand what your offering and value is. Like, like anything, right? If I'm going back to business school, or I'm going to go, I talk to a lot of college kids about this that are in, their master's programs. And I have a master's in doing business, not, MBA or anything, but like actually in life. But they'll sit down and be like, okay, so if you were to do this as a founder or starting a new company, like, you have to know, like, have I done my research? Right. And same thing we do with companies. A lot of times they get going and they start and then they have to do research again. And as the businesses change. So I would say, do your research and homework around, what are you bringing to the market and how is it different? Because how you tell your story is really critical. If you tell the wrong story, you might get the wrong kind of work, the wrong kind of clients. I love what you said about, I think over the years I made just bad decisions with clients that I worked for. And they just took away so much time and energy from the work, other clients that were great. And I'm like, I just kept going because like, well, it's money. We're getting it in the door. And I would say, so be selective about, especially in the beginning, who you work with. You want people that value what you bring to them, and you want them to value, you want a mutually valuable relationship together. So I go back to the beginning, like we're starting companies, like what's minimum viable product look like? How do I sell this to someone, and is it valuable? And then scale it from there, right? But you use it as a testing phase. I have this saying that we've been using for a long time. It's like, let's start a lot of little fires and see what burns brightest. And then run like hell to the one that's got burning the brightest, right? Because that's where you put all the energy into. And so I think I would have started more fires early on. Instead of saying like, like we're in this, we're doing this, I would have explored a little bit more and tried to see, what, again, did my did what we did. Was it a certain industry I should focus on? I think sometimes people get so like, well, we're agnostic. We can work for anybody. And we've gotten into that too, where we've done a lot of different work in a lot of industries. And then we've like, but then you focus and you're like, well, there's less revenue here in this area if we just focus on CPG or something. And so, so I think it's really just making sure you're doing that due diligence in the beginning. And just remember to start out and constantly reevaluate the things that you're doing. It's not that, you might have a great idea, but you got to like pressure test it, and, talk, like you said, I think it's great advice to bring people in, whether it's mentors or businesses, and say like, hey, I've done this now with a few people, even what I'm doing now, where I'm like, hey, look, like, if you need help with this, like, great, like I can help you. Like, oh, I can do this in AI. I don't need any help with this. I said, great. Why don't you go off and do your version of AI, and I'll come back with my version of AI or my version of this, and like let's see who's got better ideas. So you kind of prove it out to them, and then it's like they come back and it's like just exactly what you would expect out of like an entry point here, and then more strategic, thought leader led or like strategically led AI integration as well, and come back like, here's the two different sets of ideas that I've modified a bunch, and look, which one do you think's better? So I think you want to prove it, but step slowly, like go through the process with your business to kind of prove it out. Make sure you're going to know at some point where it's like, it's clicking, everything's, and then you'll find the spots that it's not. And so I would just say, be aware that, every idea isn't always perfect, and every business idea is not always perfect. But and if you haven't run a business before, you're going to run into a lot of hurdles. And so be prepared to jump some hurdles and kind of adapt and not expect there to be no change throughout the process. And seek others' help. Talk to people that have been doing it. I think that you and I both I'm in a very much a like, let's connect. I don't care, competitors or not. It doesn't matter. I love this community that we're in, and I want to share as much as I can because it's I want to pass that on. That's part of my mentory vibe. I like that. I like to make people feel like they take something away and then they go do it, and it's great. So I would get with mentors, especially if you're starting something new, and they'll give you more than you think like out of it. And I think that if you respect them and buy them lunch, talk to them, like go out and say, would you be willing to have these conversations? I think that goes a long way. And start small, burn some small fires and see what burns brightest. And then when the one burns, you just dump some gasoline on that. That's my whole take. So
totally couldn't agree more. Loved the time and really just enjoyed the conversation. I know that you would say this, so I'll just say it to anybody who's listening that if myself or Dave can be a resource for any of you out there, feel free to reach out. I mean, at the end of the day, like we're not just in this for money. We're in this for really making a tangible difference for real human beings who are maybe struggling. And you don't have to actually do it alone. There are plenty of people out there. Know that there's people like Dave and I. There's hundreds, if not thousands, of people that are probably within arm's reach that would, especially with LinkedIn or social media. So feel free to reach out. Really appreciate the time. Always have looked up to you.
Oh, man.
And funny story is that Dave, you went to my dad's church in Temecula.
I did.
Back in the day, and we found that out, which is such a funny connection point because we are not in California right now.
No.
And you live 5 minutes from my studio, which is just the craziest thing ever. So love how the Lord works, and excited to be in relationship with you. Thanks for the time.